Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now August 11th of 2025, and given that the Meghan Markle drama continues to worsen over time as we get closer to the release date of With Love Meghan Season 2, we already know that reshoots have finally wrapped, they are officially over, and now they're rushing to actually re-edit the entire season and get this thing pumped out on Netflix as fast as possible, which is exactly why I keep saying that this is going to be a bigger ratings disaster than the first one, because they're rushing this thing, and they're really trying to scramble all the footage together as fast as possible to really get a product out there. And also they have little to no time to market this thing. They're already dialing back on millions of dollars worth of funds on the marketing campaign, and that's just the beginning. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Netflix right now is that we know that CEOs Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters, they are hurrying up with this actual project. They are really trying to just get past this thing and call it quits with Meghan Markle and to focus on the new, right? To focus on the future. New projects, exclusive movies and or television programs, and take it from there. However, we know one thing about Meghan Markle right now is that she is desperately clinging to any opportunity out there in the film industry that will allow her an acting gig, whether it's a cameo or a small role or any kind of a voiceover role for an animated, or live action project, whatever it may be. But this is where it begins to actually get worse when it comes to the fallout of her cancellation over at Netflix and a recent discovery by Netflix executives and producers. Now, one thing about all of this is that with the Meghan Markle backlash only getting worse, especially after Netflix executives and producers have been catching her in multiple acts of plagiarism and more, one significant development going on now involves more to do with yet another Meghan Markle discovery that left Netflix shocked and furious over what she recently did. Now, after Netflix, executives and producers decided to clear out Meghan's office at Netflix HQ, as executives, of course, and producers, of course, discovered more after her contract was cancelled. They came across a series of tapes that were stored away in her workstation that were obtained by Netflix executives, also digital copies. These secret tapes involved audio versions of Meghan Markle's diary that she was working on behind the scenes over at Netflix, and they were specific tapes that were going to be used for her new podcast, which is set to launch in 2026. One of the secretive tapes that Netflix uncovered after examining them involved a full-on rant, get this, about how difficult it was to work with Greg Peters, the Netflix CEO, and how she claimed that the entire team over at Netflix, including him, were nothing more than a bunch of sexists and misogynists running the studio over at Netflix. One of the other tapes involved Meghan complaining about her big scenes with Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom getting cut from With Love Meghan Season 2. Now, this tape that was part of Meghan's audio diary involved her claiming that by having both Gavin and Kamala on the show, it would have humiliated President Donald Trump. Parts of the tape, or the recording, involved various voice recordings that also went on multiple rants about President Trump and how he is abolishing DEI in Hollywood and how Meghan Markle was letting out her emotions in between takes while on set for Season 2 of With Love Meghan. These entire recordings were actually fully meant to actually debut on her new upcoming podcast to serve as a behind-the-scenes look into her actual feelings of With Love Meghan Season 2. To make matters worse is that part of the audio recordings also involved how Meghan claimed that Ted Sarandos, the other CEO of Netflix, was a two-faced CEO and how he betrayed her by cutting out her beloved cameos in her show, including Harris and Gavin Newsom. The tapes recordings, of course, were reportedly discovered on Meghan's workstation when, of course, the IT department was clearing out everything, but they also discovered physical copies of these rants and these rant-driven recordings about Netflix. But what alarmed them was that each file was labeled as a recording meant to be played on her new upcoming podcast, which is set to focus on her experience in Hollywood and specifically over at Netflix. Once Netflix witnessed that header for the recordings, they decided to investigate it, knowing that Meghan has been up to no good for the past several months. Now guys, let me just say one thing about this. Now, the fact that she had her own office to begin with, and I talked about this about a week or two ago, was insane. The fact that she got her own little office, her own little spot in Netflix because she was an executive producer on 2 seasons of this terrible show, right? This abysmal show. that nobody even asked for, nobody even wants to watch it, that's exactly why it is indeed labeled as a ratings disaster. But one other thing is very certain, is that we know that Meghan Markle, at the same exact time, she continues to actually name-call Netflix. She continues to actually make all these wild claims about Netflix and the entire team working over there, including the two CEOs, and how they keep catching her in these multiple acts of really just labeling the CEOs as this or that, or the team as this or that. And the fact that they had to investigate these recordings, these tapes, quote-unquote, whatever you want to call them, right? The fact that they discovered that had a lot to do with the header of this thing and how it was fully meant to actually share her behind-the-scenes feelings of With Love Meghan Season 2 and her entire time over at Netflix. Turns out, it was nothing but a bunch of rants about Netflix and how she was going to actually throw that on her podcast, and Netflix wasn't having it. This is exactly why they are indeed and have been preparing their own legal steps, their own legal team to take action against her. We'll talk more about that down the road. However, after they investigated the recordings, CEO Ted Sarandos got so furious after being name-called secretly behind his back by Meghan Markle that their business relationship is now essentially tarnished, and that it is very much tainted at this point. Meghan is reportedly doubling down to release the recordings on her podcast once the contract of hers at Netflix officially comes to an end, and after With Love Meghan Season 2 finally releases on their streaming platform. Now, this is all working in conjunction with the fact that she does indeed have copies of these recordings. Now, one thing about all of this is that we already know that Meghan Markle is trying to do a lot of different things right now. She's trying to land a deal with NBC for an upcoming game show. She's also trying to land multiple movie roles, but a lot of studios want nothing to do with her. Her backup plan, as we discussed, has a lot to do with launching several podcasts and creating viral moments on Instagram, right? Kind of like what she did with the pregnancy video. Now, when you're looking at this is worse than the pregnancy video because she's literally just acting totally different in comparison to how she acts with Ted Sarandos, with the rest over at Netflix on set, and how she showed her true colors here in these actual, discovered recordings, these voice recordings of her voice diary, so to speak, that was going to be launched on her podcast. Now again, I've said this many times, but I think that both Greg Peters and Ted Sarandos, at this point in 2025, they are fed up with Meghan Markle. They don't want to even see her anymore. They want to get through this project. They want to call quits for good and just focus on the future, right? They want to focus on Stranger Things. They want to focus on new exclusive movies and or TV shows or documentaries, whatever it may be, and that's it, right? But at the same exact time, people are leaving Netflix. They're really just getting very fed up with the price increases and how a lot of material is getting driven off there and replaced by subpar material, but we'll talk more about that at a later time. However, I would love to hear what everyone has to say here about Meghan Markle's recordings and exactly what Netflix discovered here and how it applies to the behind-the-scenes emotions going on with Meghan Markle for With Love Meghan. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.